Hey guys, it's your boy M.K.S back with another video. This is another one of my football videos for Celtic. As a Celtic fan, I hope to make a similar one for Italian football or Serie A clubs, maybe in the future or maybe in a few of them, and also about football academies. But anyway, this one is going to be about C.S.C.s, which stands for, as the title suggests, Celtic Supporters Clubs, and how I would love to see. I know there already are quite a few in the world, but I would love to see more or as many as possible in these places I'm going to talk about. So yeah, I'd basically love to see as many Celtic supporters clubs as possible around the world. And I don't know if sharing this video makes any difference, but I thought I'd talk about it anyway, as it's one of my main passions in life. So here goes. So number one, I would love to see as many supporter clubs as possible, Celtic support clubs in all possible Eurasian nations. I'm sure most people know what Eurasian nations are, but for anyone who might not know, Eurasian nations are countries between Europe and Asia, a bit like my background, European and Asian. So I'm part European, part Asian. So I see Eurasian nations as being national versions of us Eurasians, which is also a mixed race group, part European, part Asian. So I love Eurasian nations, and I'd love them to have Celtic supporters. I know Turkey's Eurasian. I think Armenia is as well. Azerbaijan might be. They don't always get on well with each other, but I'd love to see them be more united, and also maybe they could be united also for their love for Italian football and Celtic. So anyway, that could help strengthen their unity as well, but also benefit Celtic to a mutual benefit. So that's one. Number two is what Eurasian nations are a part of, which are transcontinental countries. Again, for those who might not know, transcontinental countries are countries which straddle two continents, if you like, or are in, are in two continents, such as, for instance, again, Eurasian nations, which are part in Europe and part in Asia. I think Egypt is part in Africa and part in Asia. So they remind me of Blasians, which are part Black and part Asian. But yeah, so I think Blasians should support Egypt on a side note. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know how many transcontinental countries or even how many Eurasian nations there are in the world, but as far as I'm aware, the only one between Africa and Asia, I think, is Egypt. So some people say it's in Africa, some people say it's in Asia. I think they're both kind of right and they're both kind of wrong because it's in both. So again, but all your transcontinental countries as well as Eurasian nations, I would love to see have as many Celtic sports clubs as possible. So if people manage to see my videos from those countries, I hope they'll set up their own Celtic sports groups as well as Italian football club sports groups. Another area where I'd love to see where I'd love to see Celtic sports groups, C.S.C.s, are the Mid-Eastern countries. I would love to see a massive fan base of, I don't know why I did that in quotation marks, but yeah, a massive fan base of Celtic sports clubs in Mid-Eastern nations across all over the Mid-East as much as possible. Again, there might already be some, but I hope to see as many as possible. I hope to see more spring up across the Mid-East. So again, if you're from the Mid-East and you stumble across this video, please consider creating your own Celtic supporters groups, and again, Italian football supporters groups or Serie A sports groups as well, and things like that. Number four, again, another area I'd love to see, or group of areas where I'd love to see Celtic sport and Italian football sports groups would be in Mediterranean. So especially in Italy itself, but all across the Mediterranean. So basically every Mediterranean country, somehow across Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, again, all Mediterranean countries across the Arab countries like Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and places like that. So not sure if you would listen to me, but I'd love God to bless those countries as well, a bit biased on me, but those Mediterranean nations, or countries, whichever term you prefer. But yeah, so I would love to see, as I say, as many Celtic supporters groups in those Mediterranean countries as well. And yeah, hopefully, again, all different Mediterranean countries as much as possible. I know a point I nearly forgot to mention was I know there is a bit of a problem with Celtic and Spanish and Spain and Spanish clubs because of the support Celtic has for the Basque separatists. But I would love to see I would love to see Eurasian, transcontinental, Mid-Eastern and Mediterranean nations unite with each other and like all Eurasian nations unite with each other, and transcontinental countries generally, and the Mideast and the Mediterranean, all four of those country groups to, if you like, to unite together as well. And again, I'd love to see them have Celtic sports groups as well as Italian football sports groups for Serie A generally, or Italian football generally. Number 5, I would love to see, again, Celtic sports groups across Africa, and I don't know how many players from Africa have played for Celtic historically, but I know there was Victor Wanyama from Kenya, and Celtic does a lot of charity work in Kenya as well, which I hope they will continue to do, and hopefully Celtic will support Kenya and other parts of Africa in certain things like technological development, and in return I hope they'll have as many sports groups across Africa as well as possible, and hopefully compete with clubs like Man United, dare I say, or Man United, Liverpool, and other English Premier League teams as well. So hopefully it'll become as popular as possible, which is one of the main goals for this video, my main dreams for this video and these series of videos. So yeah, to spread the popularity of Celtic. But yeah, Celtic has done charity work and also had players from across Africa. So I'd love for people across Africa, especially people of colour, to support Celtic, or even people of colour generally, to support Celtic around the world. Number 6, I would love for there to be Celtic sports clubs across Australasia. I know there are many in Australia itself because of the Irish diaspora and the connection there. Those of Irish descent, but also I'd love for Indigenous people from like Aborigines, Torres and Strait Pacific Islanders, and Maoris. I would love to support them, and I would love them to also in turn support Celtic as much as possible, and again have sports clubs for people of all different backgrounds across Australasia, and that sort of thing. Trying to remember what number I'm on, but yeah, number 7 I believe I'm on. So yeah, that was Eurasian, transcontinental, Mideastern, Mediterranean, African and Australasian nations, and also across the Americas, all over the Americas. Number 7, I would love for people across the Americas to support Celtic as much as possible, like have as many Celtic sports groups where they meet up and watch Celtic games, Celtic bars and things. I know wherever there's an Irish bar, there'll be, like, generally speaking, there'll be, probably every Irish bar has Celtic sports groups and watch the football. But yeah, I hope there'll be, maybe even not just in Irish bars, but just generally in different pubs and bars and cafes, and maybe even people who are teetotalers like myself, people who don't drink, from different backgrounds, even like Muslim countries as well as Christian or all sorts of different countries, whatever religion they are, and maybe they don't drink like myself. But they could still support Celtic in like cafes or just groups where they meet up wherever they can and discuss Celtic as much as possible. Number 8, I would love for Celtic to have Celtic supporters groups, C.S.C.s, across Asia as much as possible. Again, Celtic have had lots of players, well, a few players at least from Asia. Like we have Kyogo Furuhashi from Japan at the moment. We had Nakamura in the past, who was from Japan, and a long time ago we had a player from India, Mohammed Salim. So a few people from India have heard of him. But yeah, I'd love to see Celtic sports clubs in China, India, maybe even like, as I'd love to unite Asia together as much as possible. Many of these groups, when I've talked about, probably even all of these groups I've talked about, I would love to strengthen their relations, but also between each other. But yeah, they could perhaps bond over supporting Celtic as well. So again, I'd love to see Celtic sports groups in those countries, and again, maybe Celtic could do a lot of fundraising in those countries again, as much as possible, so that again it's a mutual benefit. Like Celtic will give back, and in return they'll give back, so they both hopefully benefit together. Number 9, I'd especially love for Italy to have a very special bond. As someone who supports Italian football and Celtic, I would love to see the two join together, especially like, so I'd love to see, I know they're already, again, ItalianCelts, but I'd love to improve relations. Again, just as I mentioned with Spain, I know there are some right-wing Italian football teams, unfortunately, and they don't get on well with Celtic, like Lazio or teams like that, but somehow I'd love to have as many Celtic sports groups again, see more of those in Italy as well. I know there are already a few, and there are probably a few Irish pubs and bars in in Italy, like with Roma fans probably and others. But I'd love to see somehow as many as possible again. Where they can bond over football again in cafes and different places. Number 10, again, I would love to see Celtic supporters groups and clubs bonding over supporting Celtic as much as possible in as many countries as possible across Europe and across as many, however many countries there are in the world. And again, especially these groups I've talked about. But I'd especially love to see them in those communities. I know obviously they're not going to be in those countries. I know they're obviously in some parts of Glasgow or some parts of Europe they're not going to be, because obviously they're going to be Rangers areas. But I would love to encourage those groups which I mentioned to be Celtic supporters as much as possible. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, especially if you're a Celtic fan, but even just generally, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I appreciate your support as ever. I know no Rangers fans are going to support it, I would imagine, but I hope even if you're not a Celtic fan, perhaps you liked something about this video. And I'm out. Peace and love.